name is James Mayfield Smith. I'm a breakthrough coach, and I'm here with Yeshe-La Chodron, who is a feminine empowerment coach. She is one of the coaches in our Breakthrough Circle program, and I just want to, basically speak just a tiny bit about what it is that I do, what we're doing here today, and then I want to hand it over to Yeshe to talk a little bit more about what it is that she does. So, as a breakthrough coach, I work with transformational empowerment, which means I help people to be able to really work with the things that are stopping them, things that are getting in their way from really manifesting what they want in their life, to really get results on the outer and on the inner. And I do that by helping people to learn to see themselves, hear themselves, and hold themselves in new ways. To really work with that inner landscape. And the reason that I found that so successful is that it's really difficult for us to change our lives and what's going on in the outer if we're the same on the inner. That relaxing into a new way of being is the most gentle path that I've found to transformation. And so, we're here today with a divine feminine breakthrough theme. A lot of the tools that I use are very yin tools. They're very feelings focused. They're very sensation based. They're somatic tools. They're mythic tools. They're imaginal tools, shamanic and bioenergetic tools. And so the feminine piece is very strong in what we do. Now, I'm also work a lot with a masculine. I lead a wild man retreat, and I do a lot of work that also has more of a masculine holding kind of component as well. So Yeshe is going to introduce herself. Now, Yeshe is on that spectrum. She's really much more on that feminine side, and really shows up in a way that is really sweet and beautiful and loving, but can also be fierce and hold your feet to the fire as well. So Yeshe, if you can just tell a little bit more about what it is that you do, we'd love to hear that. And I just want to, even before we do that, pause to say, sounds like someone's joined us. Cherry, welcome. We're glad that you're here. Looking at, and it looks like you are not able to talk because it doesn't look like you have a microphone connected, but there is a chat there. So if you can just send me a brief chat down at the bottom of your screen, just to let us know that you can hear us, that would be great. And I'll turn it over to Yeshe.
Well, hello, everyone. So I'm Yeshe Chodron, sometimes called Yeshe-La, which is an affectionate and a kind of an honoring way of saying the name, and it's a Tibetan name. And what I do is I share ancient healing for modern lives with people who are feeling unclear or disconnected, or numb, and want to live enlivened lives where they can be their most powerful selves. And so what I do is I share a lot of the similar tools that James mentioned in terms of my shamanic background, my background as a hands-on healer, my background as a coach for the last handful of years, as well as some counseling tools, polarity therapy work and such, etc. And there's other things too, but I think that's kind of boring. I think what's more exciting is to say that what I enjoy most about what I do is being present, holding sacred space, and allowing a transformation to unfold that's really directed by your inner self, by your soul. And yes, I do this mostly in a feminine way. And I do want us to talk about what is feminine and what is masculine, what is divine and what is shadow, and how these things come together or come apart. But in terms of how I serve in the world, I do one-on-one work. I also do group work. We work over the phone or through media such as this, like video chat, or we work in person. I'm in Lawrence, Kansas. And so if you're in the area, we can work directly one-on-one live as well. So, and yeah, that feels good.
Thank you, Yeshe. And I also just want to put a shout out to Zach. Zach is in our Breakthrough Circle program. He's actually going into the level 2 program. He's a doctor of chiropractic and has just found a lot of benefit for this work that we do. To be able to serve customers, and as well as to the people that he serves, as well as for his own personal journey. So just want to thank him for being on this call as well. And thank you, Cherry, for also being here. briefly, and now we're gonna, in a moment, we're gonna get a chance for you guys to introduce. In fact, I think maybe we'll go ahead and do that now. So I think this is a good time. So I'm gonna have Zach unmute his microphone and just
Okay.
kind of introduce himself. And if you can just introduce yourself, anything you want us to know about you, but also if you can share, why did you decide to show up for a call that, as you know, that's named Divine Feminine Breakthrough? What is it about that caused you to take an hour out of your lunch hour to join us?
Well, yeah, hi, I'm Zach. Like I said, I'm a doctor of chiropractic, on the verge of starting my own business here in the next 2 weeks. I'm actually pursuing that. But I chose to show up for this just because of where I'm at and what I'm working on and what I'm trying to step into, or at the same time step out of. I felt really called to get on. Just felt like it's in the avenue of loving myself and how I hold myself in the story of love, and just felt like it would be a very powerful opportunity for me to explore the ways I'm attaching myself to an outcome versus the journey, and making myself suffer in that process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unmute Cherry. Just unmuted her, and I'm also going to ask her to start her video if she'd be willing. That's not required, but it's encouraged because we'd love to see you. And
Yay!
hello,
You're
Cherry.
beautiful.
Morning. Thank you. I am in bed with a sick cold today, so I have the time available, and I've been seeing, is it pronounced Yeshe?
Yeshe.
Yeshe. That's a beautiful name. I've been seeing you pop around on my Facebook for a while, and there's a lot of interesting things that I see, the way that you gather some support. I have been a person who has not had a lot of support in my youth, and now that I have granddaughters, um, and I have been through some I think we could say reasonable loss recently in the last 5 years. I'm starting to kind of look into maybe reaching out to help people, but it's kind of hard for me too at the same time, because I want to get over when people come to me and I open up and I reach out to help them, they're so destructive and they don't listen, and this person says, "Oh, get rid of them! I can't stand you anymore." And I want to kind of get over that. I think it makes me more of an angrier person. I want to reduce my stress levels, and I've always been interested in theology and studying about things like that. I'm really interested in creationism right now. So these kinds of things, whenever someone kind of crosses into my path, like Yeshe's women's feminine group, when that kind of thing comes into my path, I want to try to keep my eyes open and try to accept these sort of things.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you for being on the call, and thank you for sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And what I'm going to do real quick is I want to briefly share my screen. Matt Licata is one of my teachers, and he's one of the most feminine yin men that I know. And he wrote this, and I wanted to just share this because it encapsulates, in a way, some of the states this way that we want to be open to our experience when we're working with the feminine in ways that the masculine often doesn't. There's a way that the masculine gets a real message, and sometimes that energy is this driving force, this moving forward, regardless of what's going on in here. Whereas with the feminine, there's this openness and this attending to a more fuller picture of what is present. And so I'm going to read this to you. Tender heartache, raw burning aliveness, causeless joy, and waves of unfolding sensitivity. Grant these ancient ones safe passage as they emerge from open space and flow into each of your ripening senses. It can be astonishing to realize that everyone and everything here is being uniquely arranged out of the unseen for your sacred illumination. It's by Matt Licata. And so this idea that, wow, we can really trust that these things that are going on have a reason, and to becoming really present to them are helpful. And then second, and because this is also, this is Jeff Foster. The reason I put this, I went to a workshop with both Jeff and Matt a couple years ago, and this relates to the work that I do. And he talks about, you do not heal from trauma, and nobody heals you either. You simply reconnect with that sacred place in yourself that was never traumatized, never broken, never damaged in the first place. Your true self, absolute and ever present, innocent and free. It is not a destination. It is you, alive and awake in the moment. Know yourself as the absolute, and let all thoughts and feelings move through you, however intense or uncomfortable. The forms pass, they always pass, and you remain. You are not broken. You are unbreakable. And I chose two men because I wanted to show that when we talk about divine feminine, that does not necessarily mean that you have to be a woman in order to channel divine feminine energy. The divine feminine is in men and women as well. I've held very safe, sacred mother love for men before, and that is totally possible. And just wanted to, kind of share that and put that in. I do want to also take a moment to attune our presence. And by attune our presence, that means that we're going to actually attune specifically to a frequency that's going to help us here. And I'm going to ask Yeshe. Yeshe, would you like to do this, or would you like me to do it? I'm totally open either way.
I would love to do this.
Okay. I would love for that as well.
Thank you. So allow yourselves to let your eyelids relax or close. And bring your attention into your physical self. Allow your spine to lengthen. Allow the front of your heart to relax open. Allow your tailbone to nestle into your seat. Maybe even give it a little bit of a wiggle to nestle down. And then gently release that tailbone upward behind you. Yeah, notice how your body automatically wants to have a deep breath here. And so allow that to happen. Breathe in through your nose. And then exhale. I want to invite us to actually make a sound on the exhale. So if you're muted, that's fine. If you're not muted, that's also fine. And so have a deep breath through your nose all the way into your pelvis. Breathe in. And exhale a moan or tone or a groan. And let's have another one like that. Breathe in all the way down into the belly and into the pelvis. And exhale a moan or tone or a groan. Beautiful. Just allow your body to breathe as it will in this moment. I want to take us a little bit deeper in and allow that tailbone to extend down into the earth. So beyond your seat, beyond the floor, the subflooring, down into the topsoil, where it begins to spread and branch out, still reaching ever downward, knowing exactly where to go through all the layers and into the white hot center of the earth, that brilliant star-like quality that is in the center of the earth. Allow your root to wrap around that center or anchor into that center in whatever way it chooses. Just see that happening with your inner eye, your inner vision. And as you connect deeply into the heart of Mother Earth, allow yourself to be known by her in this moment. Allow yourself to energetically be seen by her in this moment. Allow yourself to breathe comfortably and deeply while she's reading you, so that she can know exactly what it is that you require for your greatest healing for today. And then using your imaginal cells, your inner vision again, allow yourself to see her feeding you exactly what you require and desire right now, right directly through that root. And see that move up those roots, beyond those layers of soil, beyond that top layer, beyond the subflooring and the flooring, and beyond your seat, directly into your physical being. Feel it swirl around in your pelvis and flow through your legs and feet. Feel it flowing upward with ease, all the way up into your heart center, where you feel it swirling around again, as it then overflows down your arms and up into your neck and head, spilling out the top of your head and flowing over the outside of your being, cascading all over and around you, encapsulating you with Earth Mother energy, with exactly what you require from her in this moment. And notice that the top of your head now has an opening, and you can allow the Divine Mother Cosmos to now also feed into your being effortlessly, like stardust falling into your crown. The mother of all existence is out there while simultaneously in here. And so allow yourself to open to the out there portion, to connect with the in here portion with effortlessness. You don't even have to know what that looks like or how it's quote unquote supposed to be. Just allow it to happen. Like stardust falling into your crown. Feeling that stardust land in your heart center. Have a deep breath into your heart. And exhale a moan or a tone or a groan. Beautiful. And so you can release this visual as you allow your eyes to slowly open to the light around you.
Thank you, Yeshe.
Thank you.
So when we attune our presence, we focus our attention, which allows us to get more of our intention manifested. And so I'll tell you a little, as we're like staying and remaining in this calm place, because this calm, relaxed place is going to facilitate some of the work that we do today. I just want to explain a little bit about how we're going to move forward. I'm going to bring some masculine energy of holding our container and kind of setting the riverbanks of our call. And Yeshe is going to stay deeply tapped into that feminine energy, that flowing river, so that she can just really kind of take this call and take the coaching and take what we're working with where the feminine wants it to go. And I'll jump in with that as well. But I want to start us off with this structure of, talking about what's a breakthrough. So if we're having a divine feminine breakthrough, and in a moment, Yeshe is going to jump in with what is divine feminine. But I'll start with a breakthrough. Google Dictionary says it's a sudden, dramatic, and important discovery or development. James Mayfield Smith identifies a breakthrough as a distinct and potentially life-changing insight or experience. And it generally tends to be the experience route. It's something that happens in our body and in our feelings and our sensation that can be translated into more success in your life, however that looks, whatever it is you're looking for. It fundamentally changes you. And so starting with that, if Yeshe can, what's the divine feminine piece of divine feminine breakthrough? Can you share?
I would love to. So I'm going to read a little something from a book, and it's called The Magdalene Manuscripts. And my primary ascended master guide is Mary Magdalene. And so I'm working very closely with her right now. And she says, the male initiate, being electric by nature, thinks that he can make it happen by himself, but he cannot. Isis waits for him to recognize this, but he does not. For centuries, she has waited, and now we at the beginning of the ending time, and the pressure is strong. This is one of the reasons I have come forward. And this is a quote from Mary Magdalene as she was channeled. And so it feels important to me to mention that the divine feminine, and for me, for Yeshe, right now, the divine feminine is
We're
very
having issues with your microphone.
okay.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
For me, for Yeshe, the divine feminine comes forward through the very perfectly structured, programmed, and embodied wisdom of Mary Magdalene. And so mentioning her feels, important. So thank you for allowing me to share that quote from a channeled writing of Mary Magdalene. And what that speaks to me about the divine feminine is that, as James mentioned in the beginning, she is part of us. It's sort of like if you look at this stone, this side has, these lines and this facet, and, it has this little funny thing over here, and it's mostly dark over there. And it's not separate from this side, which looks different, right? It's one stone. And so I feel like the divine masculine and the divine feminine are like this, they're one. And so the divine feminine side is sort of kind of like when we think of the moon as well. So the stone is one example and the moon is another example. The divine feminine is very present in the moon in that she turns her face to the sun, and from earth we can see that half of the time, right? So for 14 days out of our calendar year. And then we don't see that as she turns away. In truth, there's actually a dance that's happening with the sun and the moon and the earth. And there's these incredible infinity symbols and spirals. And so at any rate, so half of the time we don't see her. It's like she turns away. Doesn't mean that she's gone, but it means that we see her dark side. And so the feminine itself is also like that. Whoopsie. The feminine is also like that.
Yes, I know that one. The feminine is unpredictable.
Yep. And it's best to roll with it when it happens.
It is. Resisting is futile.
That's exactly right. When we resist her, it's when we feel her claws. So at any rate, the moon itself being in our ideology a feminine structure, a feminine form, she turns her face to the sun and then she turns her face away from the sun. She's always there, but it's like the sun side is the side that's illuminating and brilliant and shines light. And the dark side is the side that's like, privacy and discerning and discriminating and doesn't show herself. And so the feminine is like all of those examples. And I want to share something too that feels really important. And I didn't bring my visual tool for this, but I'll just use my hands in that, and your imagination as well. So if you can imagine a DNA strand, that double helix, right? And you know how when it's depicted medically or through science, it's often got one side that's red and one side that's blue so that you can see how the two sides dance around and fold upon one another, right? And so if you consider, I'm going to use an example of the tree of life or the Kabbalah. So the Kabbalah has 3 pillars. There's a left pillar, a right pillar, and a central pillar. The left pillar is known as the feminine. the right pillar is known as the masculine. And so if you consider that the origination of an energy beam, let's say, starts at the feminine side or the masculine side, but then just like that double helix, it twirls and folds upon itself as it goes down both sides. And so in essence, what's happening is the feminine may start over here, but she crosses over to the masculine, then crosses back over to the feminine, then crosses back over to the masculine, then crosses back over to the feminine. And so there isn't ever a time where the feminine and masculine are separated. Never. There isn't ever a time. There isn't such a thing. So by saying divine feminine, it's important to talk about that. But then let's also talk about just that one stream that dances from side to side. Okay. Just like the moon, the divine feminine has an illuminating self where she's coming forward, and she also has a nesting self where she's allowing privacy. Right? And so the feminine does both of these things, just like the masculine does. And so when we think about the feminine way of doing this, it's often a softer way of happening. And the feminine does have velocity, so she can be quick, but she can also be slow. But usually the effects of her velocity or inertia are felt softly, and she almost kind of creeps up on you. She almost sort of comes in from underneath. And so we can also think about the qualities of earth and water when we talk about the feminine. These are the two elements that are most often ascribed to the feminine. Although the feminine also appears in the other elements, we most often ascribe her qualities to these two elements. And so like water and like earth, the feminine wants to be low and grounded. Grounded doesn't always necessarily mean down, but she definitely wants to be low. In other words, there's not a lot of electricity shooting off of her. There's oftentimes this essence that's emanating from her or into her. And so the feminine receives with this just kind of absorbing power. The feminine also exudes with this radiating power, right? She just illuminates, whereas the masculine often is electric and direct. The directness of the feminine is in discerning, being discriminating. So the feminine, if you think of a stop sign, this is also part of the feminine flow. She wields the sword so that we know, no, you shall not pass if you are of this energy. So she's discerning and discriminating in that way. And she's sort of, if you think of a woman picking beans, right? She's picking out the bad ones and keeping the good ones. That's discerning or discriminating. And so the feminine does this as well. And so I'm going to let us take a breath. That's not nearly all of what we could say about the feminine, but that's just a small scratch of the surface. And so breathe that in, if you will. I want to talk about divinity next, but breathe that in. Beautiful.
And as the masculine, I just want to reflect that the divine feminine is two sides of the same stone. It's intertwined with the masculine, that it's often softer and more indirect, yet discerning, that it has that flavor of earth and water, where it's low and grounded and illuminating and radiating. Thank you for that, Yeshe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
And absorbing.
And absorbing, yes. And so how that shows up with coaching and with healing and with like a breakthrough, because in a moment we're going to get a chance to speak into the breakthrough we're looking for. So when I work with because I've had some huge experiences with feminine energy, and it tends to be when I'm working with divine feminine, it tends to be when I'm in pain, like the time when I was full of shame and approached by the goddess, and like just this this fear that came up in me, oh shit. but then this like grace that happened of just like this energy just of shame just being lifted from me. Or the time when I was swimming in the ocean and crying my eyes out because over a woman, and just hearing this voice from the back of my head come up over my ear and say, I bring you amazing women, you don't have to worry about that. I bring you amazing women. So, and that fits in with, with what you've been saying. But for this breakthrough, when we have a breakthrough with feminine energy, I find that it's often healing. It's often, comforting. It's often, not always like this direct, this is what you do, clarity kind of thing. This more of comfort. And I'm wondering, as people begin to speak into what they think divine feminine energy might have for their breakthrough, what could you share, Yeshe, about what that might be, some flavors of how that
Mm-hmm.
might look, so that they
Mm-hmm.
have some things to choose
Yeah.
from.
That's a great question. I want to briefly mention about divinity versus
Mhm.
shadow,
Okay.
because divinity is something that it's never the same. In speaking about the divine feminine as a quality or as a spirit or as an essence or as a woman, speaking into divine femininity, divine feminine, we want to speak into the divine being that which propels us towards our evolution. And so it's never the same. The feminine is never the same. And so you're right. The feminine can be very nurturing and holding. And this is how James, I've heard you many times experience the feminine in her divineness and being holding and mothering and nurturing and soft. And as I mentioned, sometimes the divine feminine is quick, and sometimes she will wipe you out from under your feet, and it brings you toward your evolution. And sometimes she's not soft. If you think of a very sharp sword, sometimes she's doing that, but it's always in the essence of moving you toward your personal evolution. And I also want to say that, and that's about divinity itself. It's that which moves you towards your personal evolution, not away from it, but toward it. And what I also want to say about divinity. I lost my train of thought. Let me have a breath. So what I actually wanted to say was about the feminine, in that she's always moving and changing. So even in her nesting, she's constantly absorbing. And so if when she's nesting and absorbing and nurturing you, it may be different one moment from the next moment. And so in looking at what brings your divine feminine breakthrough, it's really imperative that two things be suspended. One is resistance, and the other is judgment. And so feminine qualities are almost always moving. It's sort of like when I teach yoga, I teach that no pose is 100% static. It just isn't possible. If you're actually practicing yoga, it's not possible to be totally still. There is a stillness quality, but just like the masculine and feminine can't ever be separated, there's movement and stillness can't ever really be separated. And so there is a stillness quality. So you may reach a peak moment in a yoga pose, but it will fall out of that peak immediately, because once it has arrived, it dies. That's just the nature of the feminine. The feminine masculine interplay. So in terms of looking at your divine feminine breakthrough, what you can bring forward yourself, or from within yourself, is again suspending judgment and suspending your resistance. So you could see your resistance and look at it and speak with it if you like, and say thank you for coming. You could be mad at it if you choose to, whatever it is, but you could see your resistance. However, it's important not to then grab a hold of it. It's important to let that resistance just be there. And the same thing with judgment. You can see your judgment. I was having some very sharp experiences with judgment in these last several days. And you can see your judgment and just hold it there. I am wow, feeling so overfull with judgment right now. And just letting it be there, not moving away from the judgment, not moving out of escapism, but allowing anything that is divine. So in other words, anything that moves you towards your personal evolution, allowing that to join you in your suspension of judgment and resistance. And from there, I think that the world is her oyster in terms of what else the divine feminine would like to bring you to nurture your breakthrough.
Thank you. Thank you. So as
Mhm.
we go into this next piece, thank you so much for that, Yeshe,
Yeah.
of releasing our resistance and judgment and being open to the variability of how divine feminine can show up.
I have one brief correction, and I
Okay,
apologize for
no
interrupting.
problem.
So, the divine feminine in me really wants to be clear about this. It
Okay,
isn't releasing resistance necessarily. It
okay.
can be, but it doesn't have to be. But just allowing that
Oh,
resistance to be in your
okay.
open palm.
Got it.
Because if resistance is going to move us towards our evolution, it's important that we allow it to be there. And the same with judgment. So, it isn't about releasing necessarily, but suspending.
Got it. I get that. And how, the resistance actually is our friend because it shows us where the work is. And so it's not about negating that. So thank you. Thank you, Yeshe.
Mhm.
We're going to have an opportunity to speak into, and if you look on your screen, you'll see that I have, my name is blank. I'm nursing a breakthrough about blank, and divine feminine energy might help me to blank. And so I'm going to have Zach actually start, and then when Zach's done, we'll have Cherry get a chance to speak into that if she chooses.
My name is Zach. I'm nursing a breakthrough about um, my fear of losing a partner. I'm just super resisting that.
Mm,
The divine feminine energy might help me by that, by helping me support, allowing that resistance to be there, to to really fill into why I'm resisting. What is there underneath it for me? What story am I hanging on to with that, through that resistance or through that judgment of how something should look or how it should be or how I should be acting in it or living in it.
got it. Got it. Thank you so much, Zach. Thank you for being able to speak into that. And Cherry, what would you like to share around your breakthrough that you're nursing?
Sure. My name's Cherry. I'm nursing a breakthrough about some judgments that I hold within even my family. I'm hoping that the divine feminine energy might help me to maybe, uh, maybe help me see, for instance, sometimes my children just for who they are and not hold a lot of judgment and say, well, if you're going to be this way, then stay away from me. It's really difficult sometimes because when it's your child, and they're an adult and they're doing something that is probably not acceptable.
Mm,
It's really hard for me not to do what my grandparents had done. If I would have done something wrong, they would have shut doors and turned their back on me and not spoken to me, and that hindered my learning for a really long time, and it left me
mm,
open to a lot of I used to always call it demonic possessions because that's what it feels like. You get out there and you don't have the protection, you don't have the resources, and you don't have the walls that are necessary to grow in a healthy manner, and to rise up above these things. And so part of me starts crunching down a little bit and saying, well, okay, then you're not good enough, and you're not good enough, and you're not good enough. And then the next thing you know, your own family isn't good enough because
mm,
it's I guess that's where I'd be nursing, is
yeah.
because it's hard for me to decipher when is judgment going to protect me, and when is judgment like how what do you do with these things? I've
Mm,
learned not having judgment has caused me some harm, physical, emotional, financial, all kinds of harm. So there's got to be some kind of a balance I need to learn a little more about.
thank you. Thank you. And so what I'm hearing you is talk about is that discernment versus judgment.
Yes.
Discernment that's going to be protective for myself. And, it goes back to what you checked in with at the beginning, which was how you didn't have a lot of support growing up and in your family, and that opened you up to destructive relationships and not knowing how to work with that. So
Hmm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for,
Very dysfunctional. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
And thanks,
Thank
Zach.
you. So I just want to, it's 12:20. We have 30 minutes, or sorry, 10 minutes. We go to 12:30. I actually want to turn it over to Yeshe to see, how you'd like to move forward. I know that we've worked with Zach before, so I'd like to give Cherry an opportunity to work, and I'll tell Zach that I'm available for you. So I will be available today to work with you
Okay, thank you.
around this. But Yeshe, Cherry, are you willing to have Yeshe work with you for a few minutes, for 10 minutes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm all here for you.
Wonderful. Excellent. And then Yeshe, I'm here too as well if you want to, if you get called to turn it over to me.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds good. And I'm sensing that there might be some of that interplay that would be
yes.
useful here.
Yes. I'm also just
Um,
aware of the time. So
yeah, thank
I,
you,
I want to
because
give you the
I'm not.
time if you like. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Cherry, I want to ask you if you have clarity around the difference between judgment and discernment. Do you have clarity around those two different energies?
No, no, I say probably not. I say I need to do a
Hmm.
lot of work in that area.
Okay, so let's check this out. My guess is that you're aware of how judgment feels considering what you just spoke into. And so I want to
Absolutely.
ask you, yeah, thank you. I want to ask you to move into the energy of discernment with me. Okay.
Okay.
And so we'll do this in sort of a meditative way. And everyone can do this with us. So allow your eyes to close or relax. Have a deep breath into your body, deep breath into through your nose if you can. And then let out a sigh. Beautiful. Yeah. And I'm going to invite you to have one more like that. And then when you exhale this second time, drop your shoulders. So breathe in and then drop the shoulders. Beautiful. Very good. And you can go ahead and close your eyes, Cherry, as well. And so allow yourself to feel as if you're falling into yourself. See the darkness behind your eyes. And imagine that a small version of you is falling into your own self. And then you can allow yourself to land softly within, in a deeper place from where your attention usually is. Beautiful. And then imagine that you can call forth the energy of discernment so that it shows up in front of you. And I feel like it might be helpful, Cherry, to invite you to use your words. I want to ask you to say something to the effect of, I call forth the energy of discernment before me.
I call forth the energy of discernment before me.
Beautiful. And then just watch the energies that come together in front of you. Watch that dance. Maybe it's light, maybe it's form, maybe you hear sounds or see people or things, perhaps animals. Just watch that experience come together in front of you for a moment. Yeah, and so allow it to come together more. I feel like it's kind of a little bit scattered, so allow that to come in even more closely. You could ask the energy of discernment to come into sharper focus for you.
Well, you're sure right. I'm seeing all these, I'm an artist, and a lot of color usage, and I'm just seeing colors come together and turn into mud right before me. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to really get some, some
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
light directed.
Mhm. Beautiful. Beautiful. And so even in the mud that you're seeing, allow that to be okay. Whatever it is that you're seeing, allow that to be okay. And let's just ask that it be right in front of you so that you can focus and have clarity. And so, with those colors and the mud and the other visuals that you're seeing and whatever else you're feeling, allow yourself to take one step closer to the energy of discernment. So, you're just stepping forward one step. Just notice what you feel in your body as you do that. And I want to invite you to introduce yourself to the energy of discernment by saying, "Hi, my name is Cherry," or however you'd like to say that.
Hi, my name's Cherry.
Beautiful.
I'll be visiting.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And then just allow yourself to say to the energy of discernment, I see you. Thank you for coming, or however that comes through for you.
I see you. Thank you for making yourself present.
Mm, beautiful. Beautiful. So it feels like there's a little bit of more of a connection there. That's wonderful. So just allow yourself to imagine that you and the energy of discernment have now greeted one another, and you can now begin to just breathe together. So imagine that the energy of discernment in it, in whatever form that it's in, can breathe.
I feel like I want to reach out and touch the colors and kind of
Mm-hmm.
get involved with them a little bit and sort of start
Mm-hmm.
sorting. I can see a new painting coming in for me.
Mm-hmm. That sounds beautiful. And so I
Mhm.
want to invite you to allow that desire to be there and also allow yourself to move slowly into that experience. Do move into it and allow yourself to take your time and breathe. So maybe gently reach out. And what I'm going to invite you to do is as you reach out and touch those colors, as you get involved, notice what you feel. Notice the response of the energy of discernment as if the energy of discernment is a being unto itself. So I'm asking you to notice the interplay.
I mean, I can feel a coldness and
Mm-hmm,
kind of a sticky. Uh,
mm-hmm,
I feel some red, a little heat, like coming in the background in a way, or maybe it's more like pinpricks.
mm-hmm. Beautiful. Stay with that and breathe and allow that to have more space within your experience. Mhm. You're doing so beautifully. And so allow your body to respond to this energy of discernment, to the colors, to the form, to the stickiness, to the prickliness, to the cold, to the heat. Allow it to just inform you in a way that feels right and good for you. Yeah, beautiful. I love that you're allowing your body some movement. It's perfect. I'm just going to ask you to stay with it for another few seconds. Beautiful. If anyone needs to move as we're experiencing the energy of discernment, feel free to do that. Perfect. And so now I want to ask you to gently take a step back away from discernment once again, letting it still be there in front of you, but taking a step back. Have a deep breath, breathe in through your nose if you can, and sigh. Beautiful. And then take one more step back away from the energy of discernment. And just notice what's happening within you as you do. And I'll ask you to just share some gratitude with the energy of discernment in whatever way feels right to you. So maybe it's thank you for showing up and playing with me, or thank you for being here. However that sounds to you, I'll allow you to express some gratitude here.
Gratitude for the discernment. Oh, I'm thankful that the discernment is showing me I'm receiving a path to start to visit discernment. And I'm thankful for you three to be here and help me in that journey. As I separate from it, I feel like that mud is sticky, like it's sort of like not letting go a little bit, like it's trying to pull me back in. I need to visit this
Mm-hmm.
a little more intimately, I guess they would say. And art does help me with that a little bit, or a
Mm-hmm.
lot, actually. So the feelings that I'm feeling are I'm thankful that it's here, but I'm feeling some resentment that now I've seen a little piece of it, and now I'm going to leave it, or step away from it. I kind of feel like I need to tackle it and rub that mud all over the place, and, really get involved what that is.
Beautiful,
So
beautiful. And so allow that imagery to dissolve and allow yourself, your smaller self that did this journey, to come back into full consciousness in your physical being. And so have a deep breath in and release. Whenever you can. And then another breath to come fully back into this present moment with us in the space. Yeah, and maybe stretch your arms or legs or whatever needs to move. Turn your head, and everybody can do that. Wiggle around just a little bit. The feminine likes movement. Yeah. And allow your eyes to open. And Cherry, if you would share with us, what is the most important thing that you have just learned about the energy of discernment?
that it's available, or that it's there. And I would say that, like your feminine and masculine energies have a balance, that the discernment maybe would be the balance or the counterpart to judgment that that I know so well. So I would say I've learned a little bit about uh, balance.
That's beautiful. Thank you. James, what do
Yeah.
you have for us?
Well, what I have for you is an offer, and that is because I would love to do some work with you around this in a very specific way, but it would take more time than the 2 minutes we have left. What I'd like to do is send you a link to my online calendar, because what I'd like to do with you is actually go into the energy of what I call our inner child, which is this young part of you that we all have that has experienced this lack of support over and over and over again in your life. And what I'd like to do is give her a different reality, a different opportunity, a different energy of the ways she longs to be supported as a young child, especially in these very key moments of trauma when someone wasn't there for you. And to bring in an ally, this ideal support that would have, and how, what that would have looked like and how that would have felt to have the kind of support that you long to have as a child, to kind of repattern and set a template for you for what support looks like. So then, and then to get the words and the touch and to build it out, so then you can give that to yourself. And as you begin to give that to yourself and you have clarity there, then you'll be able to also extend that and give it to others in your family. And it sounds like
Exactly.
that's what you were wanting.
It is. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for your
Yeah.
insight. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. And so this is kind of a
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin. Of one side is the discernment that Yeshe took you through of really seeing that, judgment and discernment are kind of like, the shadow side of discernment is judgment. That's when it's out of balance. Whereas when it's in balance is the discernment. And in addition to that, you want to have this really felt sense of what support feels like, and we can definitely install that new program in you so that you can deliver it to yourself and to others in your family too.
Right. I may explode. We'll see.
People always think that. In fact, the thing I want to share with you is people are scared of their depths. They're scared. I'll explode. I may explode. So
It
so
is. It does have a little string of fear and panic that goes
yes.
on when you talk about things like having support, and you're right on the money with the not having the support in the childhood and things like that.
Yes.
It's very hard for me to be able to teach love and support, not knowing what that even looks like. It's really difficult.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so I have not only the offer to work with you individually, but next Wednesday from 7 to 8:30, we have a community meeting where we're coming together and we're doing, really transformational community of how to cultivate a breakthrough. Will be actually the next 2 Wednesdays. So yeah, those are free of charge. Now, are you here in the Kansas City area? Where are you located?
I'm in Topeka,
You're in
Kansas.
Topeka. Okay, so I'm in
Uh-huh.
Lawrence. So
Yeah,
excellent.
my mother comes to Topeka, and I lived in Lawrence. I raised my children there for 35
Well,
years.
we were just in Topeka because my daughter and I were marched on Topeka just a few days ago
Oh,
on Saturday.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. I was there.
so what I want to leave you with, because it's time for us to go, but I
Okay.
want to leave you with a quote that love is infinite, that there is so much love here for us and is infinite, and tapping into that wellspring of divine feminine energy and the infinite love that's there is totally available for us. And then the last one is just to repeat, you are not broken, you are unbreakable. And this work helps to reconnect to that unbreakable spirit that is already always there. So thank you, Cherry, for joining us. Zach, if you could stay on for just a moment and we'll talk about schedules and when today you're available for me to meet with you. Cherry, I'll follow up with you, and I think Yeshe may follow up with you as well. Yeshe, thank you so much for being the dear sister that you are. This channel, this river of divine love that flows through. I am so blessed to know you and get to work with you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
sister.
you all
Thank you,
very
Thank
much.
you, my
Yeshe.
brother.
Excellent.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
I
And
have
everyone be, yeah,
one more word
yes,
from the feminine,
please.
and she reminds me to mention that when working, when bringing in the feminine as medicine, it's vital that we love, cherish, and at the very least appreciate the essence of the feminine. When we don't take time, and sometimes that means we need to take 3 deep breaths and allow her to be here, and sometimes that means that we need to take a process that we want to do and only focus on one tiny part. But the feminine needs to be appreciated in order to feel safe to show up fully as the medicine that she is. Appreciation is the minimal requirement for the feminine to show up fully. It's best if she is also then loved and cherished.
Yeah, cherish comes to mind. You know what I found
Mhm.
from my relationships with the feminine is that if they're not feeling cherished, nothing good's going to happen. So
Mhm.
it's a doorway.
Mhm.
So
That's
thank
right.
thank you so much, Yeshe. I so
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Okay, thank you,
Bye.
Terry.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.